Good afternoon, everyone. We see folks joining in, so we'll give people another minute or two, and then we'll go ahead and go through. This is the Strengthening Communities information session, and so we have a full crew of people, and so we'll do introductions, and then we'll jump into action shortly. Team, are those weird gray boxes happening over my slide decks?
Yeah, there's one on the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, the Citrix. Okay. It's a Citrix thing. Okay. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Strengthening Communities information session. You are here because you're wanting to gather more information about what is this program, what is this grant, what do I have to do to join? And so before we jump into explaining what the program is, I want to take a minute to introduce all the players that we have on the call. And so we'll start to who I see to my left. Emily, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Rodriguez. I'm the Community Engagement Program Manager on the team. Nice to have you all on. I'll pass it to who's on my left, Iskra.
Hi, everybody. My name is Iskra Kilgar. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of Community Engagement, and I'm happy to meet you. And I'll pass it to Herman.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Herman Schaefer, Deputy Commissioner for Community Engagement here at New York City Emergency Management, and Sanasa.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sanasa Kawa. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist. It's good to have you all on this afternoon.
And so those are our New York City Emergency Management guest speakers. And I also want to hold and pass the mic over to our representative from the New York City Office of Managing Budget, Meredith.
Hi, good afternoon. Good to be on this call with you all. I am the senior analyst at the Office of Management and Budget with the Community Development Block Grant Funding team. And I'm really excited to learn more about this program with you guys and share information about some of the OMB information as well.
All right, so let's jump in. First, I want you to know just a little bit about who and what is New York City Emergency Management. And so getting to know us, you should know that we help all New Yorkers in the 5 boroughs before, during, and after emergencies. We do this through preparedness, education, and response. And so in the bottom left corner, you see a picture of some of the staff with some community partners holding up the Ready New York guides. That's us pushing out the importance of how to prepare for emergencies to everyday New Yorkers. On the upper left, you'll see an image of folks at a large round table, and that is where we convene and coordinate when emergencies happen. We also plan and practice what do we do if an emergency happens. So we do something called tabletops. In the middle picture, you see a picture of community partners who did a long 2-day community preparedness training with us to learn how they can establish a resource directory, how they could better respond as trusted messengers throughout their community. In the upper right, you see our very own Commissioner Iskel, and he is navigating where we have a lot of resources and where we coordinate logistics to send out throughout New York City if there's a blackout, or sometimes we help other states out as well when they need a mutual aid request. And on the bottom, you see us pushing out materials to some folks, and that is part of that educational component of us making sure that we're educating folks throughout all the 5 boroughs how they can prepare for emergencies. We are community engagement, and our bureau is made of 3 different teams. The first team is the CERT team, and that's our volunteer program. You have to be 18 years or older. You go through a basic training. It's a year-long commitment initially, and it's a forever commitment. However long you're able to commit, you get to participate. And they help New Yorkers before and after emergencies. And so it could be that they're at a service center. If there was a major fire that kind of displaced multiple families, they might be someone that friendly face in the community, greeting folks. Sometimes they might help be directing traffic alongside with NYPD because they go through a very rigorous basic training with some police department staff members and some fire department staff members. They also help with the fun events. So they help with the balloon inflation for Thanksgiving Day parade. They help out the crowd management component for the hot dog eating contest that happens every summer as well. So CERT is something that you should definitely look into if you're wondering, well, how can I volunteer and be a part of it? Or I know some young people who are older than the age of 18 who need to get a part and join the part in the movement of helping people before emergencies. CERT is the program. Our Ready New York program is our individual preparedness. And so with this, we do a workshop for about 45 minutes to an hour, and we give you and navigate you through 3 steps of how to prepare for emergencies. We work with the general population, we work with older adults, we work with children, we work with people who may have disabilities, access, or functional needs. We work with immigrants, people with limited language proficiency, and we work throughout all the 5 boroughs. So you name it, we will come and we will do a presentation with at least 3 weeks notice, if not more. And then the community preparedness team is who we are. And so Sanasa, Emily, and I introduced ourselves, and we also have a team member named Jill Cornell. And we are the ones that kind of push out and we work with those hyperlocal organizations and faith-based congregations that are smaller in equipping them with the tools, the knowledge, and resources for them to know what they should do before emergencies, what can they do after emergencies to better help the populations that they serve. And so before we jump into Strengthening Communities, I'm going to pass the mic over to Herman.
Great. Thank you so much, Mariah. Good afternoon again. My name is Herman Schaefer. I'm the Deputy Commissioner here for Community Engagements. And as such, I oversee all the programs that Mariah just spoke about. And you're going to learn more today about the Strengthening Communities program. And I always think it's good to set the stage of sort of why and how we got to this point. So the Strengthening Communities program really is about local community planning. And you'll learn more about how the program is set up. But one thing after being here for 20 years that always happens during an emergency is that after an emergency, people say, we didn't engage the community enough. And the reason why is because it's super important. We as government are here to serve you. And if we don't have a mechanism for being able to speak to you, understand your needs, understand your problems, then we're really going to fail as a government entity to be able to make sure that we're meeting your needs. So the Strengthening Communities program was born out of the idea that there is a bilateral communication, that us as emergency management can speak with local community groups to understand what their needs are before, during, and after an emergency. As we look to recover from an emergency, are we doing it correctly? What are your thoughts on that? And so what this program does is it allows for you to build a local community plan over the course of your the last 6 months, but it also allows us during an emergency, before and after an emergency, for us to communicate with you and help you communicate with your communities. So while you'll learn about this program as a training program, and ongoing, we are going to be able to provide resources to you, This is also a program where we work with you during and activate you during an emergency and after an emergency, to allow you to be able to better serve your communities, and therefore better serve the city of New York. So we're super excited to have you here. We're super excited to be able to offer these resources to groups like yourselves. And we really hope that you really take a look at what we are able to do together, bring those ideas back to us, and work with us as we continue to build this program and build our connections with communities and build those local community plans that are really going to be integral to you having a successful response and recovery to the emergency, and us as a city really being able to respond better to your needs during and after an emergency. So again, thank you so much for being here. I'll turn this back over to Mariah and her team as they walk through what the program is, but know that this is an integral part of emergency management and our mission here to be able to better understand and work with communities. And this is one of many ways to do that. And this is an incredibly important program to us, and something we put a lot of time and effort into thinking about. And it's only going to get better with your engagement with us. So again, Mariah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Herman. So before we dive into strengthening communities, it's important for us to lay the foundation. And part of the reason why I take time here is because after the information session, you may say, strengthening communities is not for me. And I'll say, hey, you can stay connected with us. We still have trainings. We still can do thought partnership. There's still ways to engage. And so we work with hyperlocal community faith-based organizations, hyperlocal faith-based organizations in smaller congregations, and with community and faith-based networks and or coalitions. And so you keep seeing this word hyperlocal, and you might say, well, why do you keep saying hyperlocal? We target organizations that we know may have an amazing reach to everyday people in New York, but they're not big with multi-million-dollar budgets and have the capacity to be able to prepare for emergencies or know what the next steps are. So we are not intending on onboarding groups that we know are already geared up and they know what to do, or they already are contracted with the government to help us with the emergency response. We're targeting the folks, you are the movers, the shakers, you are the ones who are the trusted messengers, you are the resources throughout your community. And so when we use that word hyper local, it's because that's who we're targeting, folks who may not have the resources, but we can actually leverage their connections and equip them with the resources. Throughout this whole presentation, we encourage you to drop in questions and any curiosities in the chat, and we'll address them as they flow in. This recording will also be provided to you as a follow-up. And if after today you say, oh my goodness, I need to have my buddies from our whole coalition come back again, we're doing this again on Wednesday. So something to know is that after post-storm or superstorm Sandy, we had that bounce back and that feedback of, hey, there's a big disconnect between community and faith-based organizations and city government. And so just as Herman responded and kind of shared what we are doing and the importance, part of what he also did was formulate the unit of community preparedness. And that was the response to say, hey, we're going to close that gap as much as we're able to. And as we established the program and as we established Strengthening Communities, we also kind of anchored ourselves in some of the foundational concepts of Dr. Daniel Aldrich. And one of the things that he speaks about and that he has done a lot of response work after Katrina, he was part of Katrina. He survived and witnessed a lot of how people bounce back. He's done a lot of amazing work in Japan before and after earthquakes and tsunamis. And he speaks a lot about social capital. And so I'm taking my time on this slide because we keep saying we want coalitions and networks. And that's because we know if it's just a one woman show or one man show or one person show, it's not sustainable. And so the collective ability of a neighborhood or a geographically defined area to deal with stressors and resume life through cooperation following the shocks, that represents community resilience. And it's done through 3 different types of social capital. There's the bonding. All right, I'm hanging out with people that look like me. I'm comfortable with this. There's the bridging. I might hang out with folks that look like me. And I might say, oh, this is a positive squishy. I'm going to engage with people who who I don't normally engage with. I'm engaged with the house of worship that has different beliefs than me, but they're also resources, because let's figure out how we can expand that reach. And then there's the linking. How can your coalition and or network link to government at the local level? So that's city government, state, federal, and your elected officials. And so hold on to that. When we use the word community resiliency, we're using it in the way of there are 3 types of social capital needed to navigate this process. Now, I mentioned to you after Superstorm Sandy, we did the call and response. And part of that call to action was we saw a need and we said, let's fill the need. And we did that by partnering with some community organizations, some faith-based organizations, and establishing a toolkit. And the toolkit was designed for hyperlocal networks and coalitions to kind of sit down and navigate what can we do before, during, and after emergencies, and what steps should we do. And as we created that, we said, all right, we want to build stronger, more resilient neighborhoods, but it's also important to know that cycle of emergencies. And so we have that cycle of preparedness. We have that cycle of response, which is minimizing the damage created by a disaster. We have that cycle of recovery, which is returning the community back to, I will scratch normal and say the new normal. And we have that mitigation. In what ways can you minimize the effects of a disaster? And so throughout our programming for Strengthening Communities and community preparedness, we navigate our training around the cycles of emergencies. At any point, you'll be able to categorize and say, okay, I'm educating the people that we serve at the food pantry. This is part of preparedness. Oh, I'm amplifying information about the upcoming storm. That's part of response. And so hold on to that cycle of emergency and know that as we establish trainings and we begin to enrich the development and enhancement of the program, we're keeping that in mind. The toolkit itself is the foundation of all of our programming, in that we mapped out what can people do before an emergencies as a community network with multiple member organizations. What can you do after an emergency, and how can you put your plan into action? And so we do this in terms of, we provide trainings, we do trainings virtually, and we do trainings in person. We provide coaching and technical assistance. And so that look and feel is, after a training, we sit with you and your team and we have a conversation and we check for understanding, or your team might have a list of 3 big questions of like, hey, we're trying to navigate, how can we change this map into a resource directory that's truly beneficial to us? Like, can you make it make sense? And we'll say, yeah, like, let's talk about it. And we do it through community and team development. And so even this past Tuesday, we had a pleasure of getting together with about 30 of our partners in person and allowing space for them to connect with each other from across the boroughs. Because something you should know is that Strengthening Communities program, all the trainings that we provide, they're provided to you virtually. However, you sometimes get to meet each other in person, whether it be at our annual symposium or if it's at our fall convening that we get to host every year.
Emergencies happen. That's why New York City offers the Strengthening Communities program. It's open to local networks with strong community connections. Our experts help your network build a community emergency plan. And your network gets paid as it completes each step. Apply now, because it pays to be prepared.
So with Strengthening Communities, we're doing this because we have the desire to deepen the community preparedness throughout New York City and throughout the 5 boroughs. We want you to create a comprehensive emergency plan and framework, and you're going to do this within your first year of programming. Strengthening Communities is not a 1-year program and that's it. It's actually continuous. It's not one and done. Year 1 is focused on the community emergency planning and creating your own plan. And year 2 is a lot leaning towards that response and how can you amplify preparedness throughout your community. For every deliverable that we establish, we have a training and a module that goes with it. And so when we provide that training with you, we're going to give you steps of what we need you to do as the after action. And so it's not just sitting quietly in a training and just going about and saying, check, we did that. It's the opposite. It's that you come to the training and you come with 2, maybe even 3 of the partners from your network, and you all are listening and you're sponging and soaking up the information. You're asking questions back to whoever may be facilitating it from our team. And then after that, you huddle with the team of like, okay, this is what emergency management said we need to do next for deliverable number 1. What do we need to do next? Like, how can we do this? Who else do we need to involve? As part of that, we also will have coaching sessions that are mandatory. And so you have someone that will follow you throughout the journey for your whole first year. So you won't get to just say, I'm gonna skip ahead. I know what all the deliverables are. I'm gonna skip ahead. No. You're gonna take your time. We have it a very rigorous 5 months for the first year because it's a lot of information and it's not designed for just one person to do it on their own. Within our programming, we also do what we call emergency simulations, and that's where we kind of exercise out your emergency plan. And so that can look like, all right, it's coastal storm season, on the day of September 19th, we're going to all have you amplify information in person, via phone, via text, via social media, emails, and you're going to exercise that simulation of what your true preparedness would be, and that after the storm, what steps would your network and coalition take? If you're thinking about the program and you're wondering, well, what is a time commitment and what should we expect? You should have an expectation of at least 3 to 4 touch points with our team. And I would say about 15 to 20 hours a month. Training is only 1 hour. Open office hours are going to be optional. Coaching is 1 hour, but then the time that you and your network need to spend to complete the deliverable, that would be about 10 hours. And so I say 15 to 20 because when we heard back from people from the last 4 program cycles and we say about how much time do you put into it, they're saying, oh, anywhere from like 10 to 20 hours each month to do each deliverable. And so the first year is very, very, very heavy, and it's designed for you not to do it by yourself as a super person. It's designed for you to work with your coalition. And so here's the breakdown for year 1, what those deliverables look and feel like. So that first one is going to be a needs assessment. So in February, you'll jump in and you'll do the needs assessment, and we will navigate what is a needs assessment as it pertains to emergencies. How do you create a needs assessment, and how do you complete a needs assessment after an emergency has happened? All of our planning is meant for you to put things in paper so that when that next emergency happens, you have the plan, you have the guide, you're able to pick it up, and it's specific to your coalition and your neighborhoods. After the needs assessment, we do our community map and resource directory. And so with that, we use Google My Maps, and we have you kind of map out resources that you utilize. This is not mapping out all the Walgreens and all the grocery stores. Like, truly map out the resources that your network leans on, to get the bare minimum, to get the bare necessities. And then you also create a resource directory utilizing that map. The third deliverable is a communication strategy. And for that, it's what are your pre-written messages before emergencies and even after emergencies. So often, some of us, we are able to think on the fly and we can send out an amazing message. But of the 6 of us that introduced ourselves today, maybe 2 of us could have that skill. Even though we have the knowledge and we have the confidence, when emergencies happen, our minds and emotions go in so many different directions. And so that's the time to kind of buckle down and create pre-written strategies and messaging for extreme heat, for coastal storm, or a blackout, and then a community-specific emergency that your coalition addresses often or occasionally. The fourth deliverable that we have is how to manage donations and volunteers when emergencies happen. And with that, it ties into pre-written messaging, but also making a plan for your coalition to know how to manage saying yes and managing how to say no. And the big 5th deliverable that has the largest cost value is the community emergency response framework. And this is where you're putting all the pieces together. All 4 pieces will go together for the opportunity for you to see it in action. And when you put that emergency response framework, we do it based on different types of emergencies. and you're taking a piece from needs assessment and you're plugging and playing it for extreme heat, you're doing probably the same needs assessment form for a coastal storm flooding. You're going to probably use that same needs assessment form for if there was a major blackout, right? And so a lot of the deliverables that you're creating, their steps. You're building upon the steps, and at the very end, you're putting it together. What we have seen that doesn't work so well is that we see a super Mariah or a super Emily or a super Herman who does all of this at the end, and then they're saying, oh, it's overwhelming, I can't do it by myself. And we're like, right, because it's not designed for you to do by yourself. It's designed for you to work with your member organizations and your collective coalition with putting it together. And I know it's hard to get folks to sit down together or get on a Zoom and not multitask and be focused. But really think about, if you're applying to strengthen communities, does your coalition, does your network have the capacity to truly work together to complete each of these deliverables? I'm going to pause. Emily, are there any questions popping in so far?
So far, just one from Laura. She said, I assume hyperlocal can also mean groups that focus on serving a niche group within the community as well.
Yes. Thank you for that question. Yes, hyperlocal groups can be, you don't have to be a 501c3 to apply to participate in strengthening communities. And it could be that you work on environmental impact and you also provide mental health services. We've had groups that have worked with youth development and education. We have some groups that do tenant associations and tenant rights. We have other groups that do a lot of work around people who are recovering from addiction. And so we do want hyperlocal groups that might touch, move, and inspire folks in a lot of different ways. But when we come to the table together, we're focusing on emergency preparedness, and you're focusing on it from the lens of the population that you serve. So if your population that you serve might be a small group of churches that are only located in East Bronx or in Northwest Bronx, that's totally fine as well. And keep dropping those questions in and we'll answer them as they come in. And so with Strengthening Communities, it's a multi-year program. And so year one, we went over the specific deliverables. Year two, you receive a sustainment funding amount of up to $10,000. And this allows you to, you'll have deliverables such as enhancing the emergency preparedness culture in your community. You're going to participate in trainings yourself to level up your own understanding. And it's about you socializing your plan and starting to use different parts of that emergency plan that you created your first year. Now you're utilizing it your second year. You're socializing it so that the other groups who only did certain pieces of the plan understand the entire plan. During this time, you're also going to begin to practice using the plan because we'll have different days of action around heat. We might have virtual tabletops where we kind of talk through a scenario and how what actions you will take, where you see a need, where do you see a gap, what are areas of concern. And we also take time to really allow you to look within to assess what your true capacity is as a coalition. What is your true reach? And so when we do the emergency response community outreach, that's what Herman was talking about, where we said, we want you to help with the response. That is pre-emergency. Sometimes it's after emergency, but we've been activating our networks pre-emergency to say, hey, we have a major storm coming in. Storm Gabriel is coming in and it's going to impact all the 5 boroughs. Can you go forth and amplify messaging throughout your community? Here's a couple of $1,000s that we have to compensate you for the work that you do for these next couple of hours between today and tomorrow. And so we have partners who do that. We've had partners that have stepped in and helped us with language access and making culturally appropriate materials. And so there's times that we might tap you in for that. But the biggest need and the biggest role that you have during sustainment funding is that you are utilizing your plan as practice and actually in real life, and that you're creating opportunities for other people, for the populations that you serve, to understand what it means to prepare for emergencies. And you're able to do that in your own languages. You're able to do that in your own interpretations, right? But you're anchoring it from the foundation of the knowledge that you get from us. And so I'm going to be passing the mic over to Meredith very shortly, but I want to share with you all the funding sources that we've had so far. When we did year one, we were able to lock in COVID recovery, and that launched us into our first year of programming in 2021. And then we were able to lock in some city tax levy funding for 2 program cycles, 2 program years. And then more recently, a year ago, we've locked in the Community Development Block Grant Recovery IDA funding, which allows us to be secured with funding from now until 2029. And so there's 2 things I want you to know. The first thing is that the monies that we disperse to you based on completing deliverables is unrestricted funding. We're not going to tell you what to do with your money. We're going to strongly encourage you to use the money within the coalition as it pertains to emergency preparedness and emergency response. But we're not going to say you must use it in these ways. You might choose to use it to help fund some of the folks building the plan. You might have a group of volunteers who you're able to say, like, let's honor some of their work, and especially the work that they're doing as we do these deliverables for year one. How you choose to use your money is to your discretion. We strongly encourage you to link it to the very work that you're doing within Strengthening Communities. The second thing you should know is that we only disperse money to one lead organization. So if you come and you say, we have a coalition with 3 member organizations, we're going to say, who's the lead organization? That's the group that should be submitting the application. That's the group that will also receive the funding. Unless you say we're not a 501c3, we'll say go get a fiscal sponsor. You still are the lead organization, but all money is based on your permission that you're giving us. We're giving the monies to this fiscal sponsor. So we do need someone that is a 501c3 or corporation for us to give money to, but you as a participating partner do not need to be a 501c3. Okay, and I see a question around, can CERT members be a part of Strengthening Communities? That's a really great question. We do have some CERT members in the room, so thank you all for joining. Throughout the 4 cohorts, we have a couple of CERT members who are part of coalitions, and they are part of Strengthening Communities as a coalition. CERT members cannot be the lead applier in the lead organization as Strengthening Communities, but they can participate if they already are part of a network that's doing this work. And I'm going to pause there and pass it over to Meredith.
Excellent. Thank you. Let me get set up and ready to present here. Oop. Sorry. Always an awkward transition. All right. Can you all see the presentation itself?
Yes, all good.
All right, in presenter mode too, not the notes
Yes.
to the side. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Minor pet peeve of mine. I know it's very. All right, good afternoon. Again, my name is Meredith Wilsey. I'm a senior analyst at OMB on the Community Development Block Grant team. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes covering the national objectives and eligibility requirements that come with the Community Development Block Grant funding. Oh, so sorry about that. All right, so welcome to a very specific information about government funding. Hopefully you all can excitedly tell this to your friends this weekend, but also bear with me as this can get into the weeds a little bit, but I will definitely take questions when I'm done presenting too. All right, so the Community Development, Community Development Block Grant is appropriated by Congress to respond to extraordinary impacts from disaster. As Mariah said, this specific funding pool is from post tropical storm Ida, or Hurricane Ida. And federally, the CDBG funds are managed through HUD, but for New York City, the funds are managed through Office of Management and Budget. All of that to say, though, New York City is the recipient of the funds. That's up to agencies, partners, and OMB to maintain compliance when using those funds. So what that means, the first step is there's specific national objectives to be eligible for CDBG funds. At least one national objective must be met. For strengthening communities, we're focusing on just that top one, the benefit to low and moderate persons or households, which I'll refer to as LMI, just to save a few words. So all network participants must demonstrate how they meet this eligibility requirement for the CDBG funding. So, very quick note on where these requirements are coming from. NISM is not pulling these out of the thin air. OMB also is not. This is from the Code of Federal Regulations. So it's codified specific requirements coming through HUD. So again, just a very quick, this presentation will be available if anyone really needs some very interesting reading to go through the national objectives. You can click on the link here on your own time if you don't have anything to do this weekend, I guess. All right, so going back to the specific requirements for this program. So what does the benefit to low and moderate income persons actually mean? So under this requirement, there are 4 categories. Again, we're going to focus on just 2 for this program. So low mod area benefit, or LMA for low mod area, and then limited clientele activities. So these are the only 2 that apply to the Strengthening Communities programs. Housing activities and job creation or retention activities just really aren't as applicable as they would be for other activities. So we're going to go through the low mod area benefit, limited clientele activities, and explain what is required to qualify under these 2 options. All right, so low mod area is essentially what it sounds like. The area is low or moderate income. So the area must be 51% or greater low and moderate income, and then also 51% or greater residential. So this is, oh, and then the activity is available to all residents in a particular area. So if the service area is this space, anyone who's in that space is able to come and receive service. So how the low mod income and then the residential is determined. So the service areas will be provided by partner organizations, and that will be overlaid against a census tract to confirm low mod income and residential requirements. We're utilizing information from the NYC Department of City Planning and the American Community Survey Census, and that creates an eligibility file. And then Section 8 income thresholds are used for that low mod income requirement. That might sound like a lot. Please rest assured, don't tune out and say that's going to be too much work. The partner responsibility is just to provide the service area. From that point, NISM and OMB, myself and other people on my team, take care of the actual determining the eligibility. So it's not a huge amount of work on your guys' end. We just would either need a service map, list of zip codes, or something similar so we can look at the service area. So please don't already be like, that's too much work. And the service maps areas are by census tract. Oh, and then as part of the final process, the service area will just need to be signed with a partner, NISM and OMB. So that is the low mod area benefit. So sorry. And then, like I said, to determine the low mod area, oops, so sorry. I apologize. That is a mistake on my end. All right, so that is the low mod area. We'll move on to the limited clientele. So this is an either or. So I'm going to continue going through other ways that partners can qualify. Please keep in mind, as I keep adding in options, you only have to qualify under one. So if your organization's impact area qualifies under low mod area, you will not need to worry about anything for limited clientele. If you qualify under one of limited clientele options, you don't need to worry about the rest of them. So I'm trying to show is that we're really wanting to work with each community partner to ensure that they're able to qualify. And we're doing this ahead of the work being done, just because then we don't have as many questions, we don't have questions down the road. So if you start to think, wow, this is a lot of requirements, please just keep in mind that eligibility only needs to be determined one way. So if the service area does not qualify under low mod area, the second option is limited clientele. And that is, again, sounds exactly like what it is. So activities are limited to a specific group of persons rather than everyone in the area. For that group that is participating, at least 51% must be low mod individuals. And there's 4 qualifying categories. Again, only one must be met. So the first one is presumed low mod income. And so this is a list specifically from HUD, and I understand the language is outdated, is perhaps the nicest way to say that. But I included this language just so it's very clear that this is the HUD requirements. So presume low mod income, clientele that HUD presumes to be primarily low mod income. So if this is the primary clientele for the organization, you'd qualify under presumed low mod income. The second option for a qualifying category is if income information is required. So if your organization actively collects family size and income data and can show that 51% of the clientele are at or below low mod threshold, that would be a qualifying category for you. And next one is very similar. So that's income eligibility. So the activity is just restricted based on income to solely low mod individuals. And the last one is nature and location of activity. So where the organization is situated strongly suggests that it's primarily going to serve low mod individuals. So the easiest example of this is a proximity to a NYCHA development. All right. Again, maybe last time I'll say this, but you only need to qualify under one option. You don't have to you don't have to meet all of these requirements. And then I'm going to quickly cover documentation requirements, and then we'll open up for questions. Just like I said, you only have to qualify in one way. You only have to document your eligibility one way. So documentation showing that an activity is designed to exclusively be used by persons presumed by HUD to be low mod income. So that can be anything like a group charter, governing document, a program description, just saying that our organization is an emergency shelter for victims of domestic abuse. That qualifies under the presumed benefit, and that would be the information that we'd need. Or the documentation to show the nature and location would be a map showing the proximity to a NYCHA development or a similar map in that way, or the process information. So this would be the income eligibility, or if you gather income information. So how is family size or income information gathered? Really want to note here that we do not need the income information. That is not required for the documentation. We just need a description of the process for how that information is gathered. Is it through the intake process? Is it another way? And then the percent of low mod individuals served. However, while we don't need that income information generally, if HUD monitors this program, it could be requested. And so the partner, the partner network would just need to anonymize and then share that information. That's not a requirement for this getting started process. Just want to be very clear on what those expectations would be. All right, so that was a lot of requirements, which is always the best part of any presentation. But the 2 key takeaways I want to leave everyone with is this proof of eligibility is a requirement for this line of funding through the Community Development Block Grant. And the reason we're presenting on it now is if we document now, we save time later, essentially getting all of our ducks in the row, preventing questions down the road. So we can say, yep, we did all of this ahead of time. these programs are doing excellent work in the community. Here's everything that's needed. And then you all can continue doing your excellent work and not have to worry about a lot of questions. So I will stop sharing and then open it up for questions either from the chat or from the Q&A for using both.
Meredith, we do have a question. Someone's saying, I assume. Okay. So within all the partners working on the project, we only need to determine our LMI area, but all partners do not have to be in that area.
I want to not give a long rambling answer on this. What you will need to turn in for the low mod area would be your impact map. And let's say 95% of the impact is in this area and you have 5% kind of outlying. We are really just asking for kind of the best summary of your impact. So I guess the short answer is yes, you'd only need to determine the low mod area. But if one of your partners is incredibly active in doing about 50% of the work, they would then need to be in that area as well.
And I pulled up the map for you all to see. This represents all the networks that we have that have participated in Strengthening Communities programming year 1 and beyond. And so what works for us is when you give us a specific zip code. What does not work for us, you'll see that all of Staten Island is highlighted. And one of the networks said, we serve all of Staten Island. For CDBG eligibility, that does not work. Zip code and catchment in specific communities, that's what's going to allow us to map it out and see that, okay, yep, they fit the area benefit. If you don't fit the area benefit and you fit the limited clientele, then all is good. So that's what Meredith was highlighting, that there's 2 different ways of eligibility. This year for cohort 5, this is the first time that we've ever had this part of eligibility. So in the application, when we do release it in October, we're going to put some language in there and what we need from you, because you're going to say, well, am I eligible or not? We need you to tell us what your service area is. You're going to tell us your zip code. You're going to tell us the specific demographics of the population that you serve, and you're going to submit your application with all the detailed information for everything that we ask for in general. And from there, we're able to make a decision.
And I will say too, Mariah and I have worked really closely on the previous cohorts, and at no point are we looking to disqualify anyone with the requirements. What we're looking to do is ensure that eligibility is proven, especially now at the start of the cohort. And we'll definitely work with organizations that are interested in being part of this program to do as much as we can to ask questions and get to eligibility. We're looking to prove eligibility, not dissuade people from participating.
Thank you, Meredith. We'll move forward. Meredith will still stay on the line, so please do drop in your questions, curiosities, and or concerns in the chat, and we'll address them before we complete this webinar. I want to keep the energy in terms of the eligibility requirement as CDBG. Some folks have dropped some chats in and the staff have been answering as they flow in. But what we're looking for when we say, what are we looking for? We're looking for your active network or coalition. You have at least 3 member organizations that you work with. So let's say you're a faith-based group and you are a church. It might be that you have 2 other sister churches that are within the same borough and kind of the same neighborhoods that you frequently already do work together. That is a coalition. You're doing work together. You have impact throughout the community. You have connections and you have the commitment to serve. The other thing that we're looking, that commitment to serve is serious, because what we've been finding out, we've done this 4 times now. What we've been finding out is that we get one person that's fired up and ready to go, and they go and they disappear and they don't transfer it over. And so when we start to try to keep the engagement going, because it's not just a 1-year program, this is a multi-year program, we're not able to onboard the next person because the next people, they don't have either any beliefs in it, they feel clueless about it, there's a disconnect. So that's why we keep saying we're looking for a coalition and network. We're not looking for a super person. We're not looking for a superhero. We're looking for, you have the cohesiveness, you're already doing great work around some type of area, and you have the ability and capacity, the time to build out these community emergency plans and be connected to us. What we offer you all, we do open office hours. So for you, it will be every Thursday, once training start, that you can drop in and out at any point during that time to ask questions. You have an assigned coach with you that navigates those first 5 years. The application will come out in October. And what we'll do is when we have our deadline or our date set and when we're ready to roll it out, we're going to have 2 more sessions that will just be application information sessions. And we'll talk about everything within it. And what we'll say is everything that's listed in the application as a requirement is exactly what we need you to answer. We have some folks on the call. I'm sure you might have applied to the previous cohort. You didn't get accepted. I'll encourage you again, when the application comes out, read every line and answer it to the fullness that you're able to. Because what happens is there's a committee of folks that review the application. And Citizens New York City, they are our vendor and they are the ultimate decision maker in this process. And so we want to keep that because it's a competitive process. We also want to be sure that folks don't come back and say you're showing favoritism because you've done this and you've done that. That's not the case. And so you'll also may be wondering, well, how do we even receive funding? You do the training, you do the coaching session, you complete your deliverable. Before that, you might even come to a couple of open office hours. You submit your deliverable. The community preparedness team, we go through these deliverables and we give you a rubric and everything, and we rate your deliverable based on that rubric and based on the quality of the work. This is not like a pass, fail. This is like, oh, like they're really doing the work. They understand what's being asked and they're making it plain for their population of people. From that, on our end, step 5 and 6 is on our end. So once we give you the ratings, I then communicate with citizens and say, all right, the following people are ready to be paid $10,000. Here's the deliverable that they completed. Here's the date that they completed. And then they will go through their process and they'll drop the monies directly to the fiscal sponsor and or the lead organization that has the account. Citizens does their own onboarding. They'll sign you up with bill pay, but all that information will dive in deeper with the application information sessions. But for now, we really want to emphasize what Strengthening Communities program is, what we provide, and why you should be a part of it. You should be a part of it if you're a group that we've seen every type of disaster and emergency at this point. We've done COVID-19, we've experienced earthquake, we've experienced magical orange smoke coming from Canada, impacting us and impacting those who have bad asthma. We've seen some garage building collapse. We've seen main water break explosions happening. We've seen plenty of flooding. And so all these emergencies are happening to our left, to our right, in front of us, behind us. How can you as a trusted resource step in and step up to help with preparedness collectively as a coalition? So if you're like, yes, I'm ready to do it, we say, yes, stand by. And we want you to sign up for the interest form that we have here. And this interest form will allow you, it's not an application, but this interest form will allow you to get on the listserv. So once we do have our date set and we have the application open, you're going to receive it. Someone eagerly said, hey, I'm trying to open up the application now and it doesn't work. Right. The application link from last year is expired. We have to change some things in the application because we have different criteria. And so once we get the application out, if you sign up for the interest form, you're going to get the information. If you say, I never signed up, you're still going to get it because we have your email address from participating in this information session. And so if there's one thing you could do right now, it would be to pick up your phone and turn the camera on and hover over the bottom left corner, the QR code, and click on that interest form. And for those of you who are like, this doesn't work, I'm not going to scan the QR code, not a problem. When we send you follow-up information early next week, we'll send a link for you to click that link and you can register it that way. This is not the application. This is only the interest form. I want to honor the time of everyone here. So I'm going to pause and open up the floor for questions. So someone's asking, I'm hearing you need to be a coalition that is community-based or faith-based. Can you apply? Okay. Can you apply as a seminary? No, we need you to be, if the seminary is the lead organization of an existing network that's hyper local, then you can apply. But we want community and faith-based organizations to apply. We want community-based and faith-based hyper local coalitions and networks to apply as well. And part of this is that higher education institutions have their own type of emergency preparedness and management. And some of you are do-gooders. And what we've been seeing the past 2 years are that some people want to apply because they know that a group does not have the capacity to apply. And so they try to apply and then say, well, we're going to give the money to this group. And then that's when it gets too sticky. And guess what? We can't answer all those questions. If at the federal level, they do an audit and say, well, why is this institution part of it if you said hyperlocal? And so we need you to, if you're one of those do-gooders, go to the hyperlocal coalition and you can help them behind the scenes, but you can't apply in place of them. And thank you for that question. So I'm pulling this on the screen again, and we'll just hold it here. The one step that you can take for now would be to sign up for the interest form and know that you'll be one of the first to receive the information once we open up the application. You might be saying, well, what's taking so long? Why did you do this? This is National Preparedness Month. And so the team and I, oh man, we've been busy bees and we've been throughout all the 5 boroughs and we've been engaging with our Strengthening Community partners at events. We've been presenting. We've been coordinating gatherings and fellowships and networking opportunities for them to meet in person. And so we want to keep it real with ourselves. And we know that we won't be able to open this application up until October. Okay, I see some thank yous, and so you are more than welcome. Also, for those of you who might not, you might be driving, might be multitasking, you can also always email us at community prep, that's COMMUNITYPREP at oem.nyc.gov, and you could email us there as well if you have any questions. Please know, if you never get an email from us, send us a note. If you don't get an email from us by Wednesday of next week, send us a note and say, hey, I didn't get a follow-up. We won't be sending up a follow-up today because we have to make sure that we're good with this recording, and we'll go from there. We'll share the slides with you all. Again, we thank you for your time. We're super excited. We're eager to bring on the 5th coalition or 5th cohort of the 4 that we brought on. We have gone from small, medium to large. We've had over 41 different coalitions and networks participate in Strengthening Communities Year 1 programming. And the biggest piece that we want is that you all continue the great work with us after Year 1. And so part of that means that you can't be a superhero and do everything on your own Year 1, but you're coming and signing up with the actual member organizations and folks that are going to help you along the way so that you could keep doing this work. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all that have joined, and we will be in touch with you soon.